Good morning, each and everyone. Thank you all the participants joining early in the morning, 9 o'clock on Saturday. And I can see the enthusiasm to learn more concepts on systematic review and meta-analysis, especially based on the yesterday topics, what you heard from experts. I'm sure you liked very much the demonstration sessions, especially yesterday afternoon. And today is going to be the continuation where I think most of the questions came yesterday on forest plot and other analysis aspects. I'm sure today you're going to be learn most of those things from Richard from CMC Vellore. And it's going to be the fruitful session once again because once you do everything, maybe once you search for the articles and extract the data, and once you have all the data with you, how to analyze the data, and once you analyze how to interpret the data is going to be most important. Otherwise, we cannot write any publication, right? So, and that aspect we are going to be covered today. And Mr. Richard from CMC Vellore is going to be take it up you to the review manager, one of the important software we used to use commonly for systematic reviews. Even though the Reviewman is coming from Cochrane, usually it is meant for Cochrane, but still we can use the Reviewman for other systematic reviews as well. And if you want to generate any forest plot and if you want to make any other analysis, certainly you can download a review manager to your system freely, and then you can use it for any calculation of systematic review and meta-analysis purpose. So that's what Richard is going to be explained today. And then we can go for the last session of the workshop, that is once you have everything with you, including the analysis, how we are going to be write the manuscript of a systematic review and meta-analysis, and how you're going to be communicate the same to the journal. So that's what we're going to be talk as a last session of the workshop, and maybe with that we can close the session. So for today's workshop, and the first talk is going to be where we are having Mr. Richard with us. I'll just show you his profile. So we have with us Richard Kirubakaran. He's done his MSc Statistics, and his designation is a research scientist in biostatistics from Professor B.V. Moses Center for Evidence-Informed Healthcare and Health Policy. The center I shown you yesterday, where you can learn many things about systematic review and meta-analysis in India. So they used to give the trainings on systematic review meta-analysis, especially how to develop a protocol of a Cochrane protocol and how to write a systematic review completely. So wonderful trainings they used to provide from this center. And it is there in the Christian Medical College, Vellore. I think that's a destination if you want to learn more about systematic review and meta-analysis. Even I'm fortunate enough to receive training long back from the same center. So that gave me enough support for doing a Cochrane systematic review after that. And his education qualification, we can see he done his MSc in statistics from Presidency College, Chennai. And his research areas are biostatistics, systematic review, and meta-analysis. I think more than this, you can see his CV on the net, as well as maybe you can understand better if you go and see the Google Scholar citations of Mr. Richard. So it's wonder to see as a youngster, no, he's having a very good publications, and good to say that many of them are in the Cochrane systematic reviews. Yesterday, even I have seen something called he's a part of one of the first Cochrane systematic review from India, which even changed the healthcare policy of India. So I think it's amazing to see this kind of understanding about systematic reviews of one person is having. And he's a person regularly involving in training the people. Even last week till yesterday, I think there was some training going on at the CMC Vellore, and he was I think lonely speaker for that. I have seen the schedule as well. So I'm sure that you are going to be enjoy his session today and learn more things about Cochrane systematic review and how to do the analysis by using Review Manager. And most importantly, yesterday you have seen forest plot. You understood how to interpret the forest plot. And today you are going to be mainly understand how to generate that forest plot by using the Review Manager. So hopefully the session is going to be fruitful, and I'll leave it to Richard for explaining better about the Review Manager. Mr. Richard, you can please share your screen so that I can share participants.
All right, great. Thanks for your introduction. Thanks for your invitation to be part of this wonderful workshop. I hope we'll be able to deliver a good material and resource for the young people who are joined this workshop.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. I just need to click on the share screen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can see your screen.
All right. Okay. Right. Can I take it over, or what is the plan now?
Yeah, you can take it over and you can do what you feel. Another 1.5 hours is yours.
All right. Okay. What is the plan for today? Is I'm not going to talk about any theoretical or lectures that you want to listen from me. What I'm doing is just a direct practical, where can you find the software first? So that's a very important task, right? You can just go to Google and just search for Revman. It's automatically going to take you to this download option. There are two versions of Revman software. One is an online version, which is a Revman web. So if you are just trying to use the online version, that's only applicable for a Cochrane systematic review. Otherwise, you will not be able to work with this online tool. Therefore, what you can do is, as a student or academic activity, you will be allowed to download the software from the internet, but you need to provide a little bit of details to download the software. Now you can see this automatically takes you to the Cochrane training page, where you can find the softwares available, and there are three options. If you're just planning to do systematic reviews and sell the systematic review as a product, then you must use this commercial use. And I hope many of you are academic users or students who wanted to practice or publish systematic reviews. You're allowed to use by clicking on this option, which is an academic use. Okay, and then you must fill up this particular form. Only if you fill up this particular form, which is very basic detail: what is your name, what is your role, which academic institution that you belong to, email ID and the country, and a little bit of a short description of how it will be useful for you. Okay, just to say that I'm a student, I'm in the process of learning, I'm process of writing a thesis for my course. So all that you can just explain it, and then pick up all this information here. And then once you submit, then it is going to take you to the next page, where you will be able to download the software for yourself. Okay, this is an downloadable software. The second option that you might find is Revman Web, which is another same software which is based on cloud-based system. As you can see now, many of the softwares are app-based. So now the mobile technology is revolutionizing the entire system. So everybody now try to implement their softwares on the web, so that you don't have to install any of the software into your computer or into your mobile devices. You can just go to the website and just log into the account, so you will be able to access those software. So I'm just showed you two options. The first option is what you will be able to accomplish just by trying to create an account over here, and then you could just simply just go here and then download the software. Whereas if you want to do a Cochrane systematic reviews, you can use this Revman web version. Okay, this is going to be completely on the web. There is no installation required. Okay, I'll just demonstrate that. Once you just go here, it is going to ask you for the username and password, which you won't have it right now because of accessibility issue with the Cochrane review. So once you log into this software, so everything is automatically available on web. So just to show you a review how it looks on the Cochrane. Okay, let me just show you this review. This is a dental systematic review. The software is completely linked into the web. So you can see that the analysis also can be performed directly into the software. Okay. So if you look at this, so everything is designed automatically. There's only one study over here, so there is no meta-analysis. You could just If you want to edit this analysis, you will be able to just make all the changes directly over here, so that you will be automatically able to generate the meta-analysis. So this is one aspect of, how do you just do a meta-analysis using the online web. So I'm not going to go into the detail of, this framework, because you may not have access to the web version of RevMan. Okay, in future, this might also be available free for you to access if you are just, planning to do some systematic reviews, or that might, charge you with the, minimum subscription charges for this online version. Okay, I'm just logging off from the online version. Okay, just going back to the, the software version of the RevMan. So once you've downloaded from the internet, you will be able to install it by double clicking the software. And then what you're going to find is, you will find the installation version which says RevMan 5. Okay, so I'm just clicked on the software, and the software is launching. As you can see now, while installing the software, it was going to ask you whether you want to install in a Cochrane mode or in a non-Cochrane mode. So the difference between these two versions of installation is, if you are planning to do a Cochrane systematic reviews, which means that it will automatically were you able to see my screen? Let me just check.
Yes, we can see, Richard.
The RevMan file?
No, we can see the
web
application. Yeah, web. Your name and.
All right. So I'm just going to share the. Just a minute. Yeah, now you can just see the.
Yes, we can.
My screen, right? So what I've done is, before I'm just clicked after installation, I'm just clicked on this RevMan 5. You all know how to just launch a software. Just by clicking on the RevMan 5, you will be able to just start a program. Okay, once you just installation, it is going to ask you for installation in two different modes. So which you can find in the preference, which says that do you want to install in a non-Cochrane mode or a Cochrane mode. The basic difference between this Cochrane and non-Cochrane mode is, once I choose a non-Cochrane mode, what you might notice is, you might notice this tab which says connection will be, disabled. You might notice now, just pay attention here. I'm just selecting the non-Cochrane mode. It just disables the software which is connecting to the RevMan. So okay, the software is connected to the server so that the file can be accessed from the Cochrane, reviews. So now, most of the time when you download the software, it will not ask you to connect to the internet to this particular server, because this server is automatically connected to the, Cochrane reviews. So it says that, hello, Richard, it has been connected to this rc.cochrane.org server. So this is just to give you an, idea how this software has been built and what is the purpose of this software. So this is initially built by, the group which are, involved in writing systematic reviews. Then the software is exclusively for writing Cochrane systematic reviews. In a longer run, what people have realized that it is so user friendly and it gives you automatically all the relevant, template for systematic reviews. Many of them have tried to use this software for writing non-Cochrane systematic reviews. So therefore, they provide you an option of either choosing a Cochrane mode or a non-Cochrane mode, depends upon what kind of a review that you are, planning to conduct. And the only thing that you should do is you must acknowledge and provide appropriate references in your manuscript when you're using this, software for academic purpose. Okay, so just to show you how this function works once it is tested, and you can notice here these buttons. You will find the home button, which is going to tell me that it connects to this server, and then it is going to take me to my reviews which I'm currently involved in. Okay, you can see the list of reviews that I'm currently involved in at various stages. I can be a author, I can be a peer reviewer, I can be a, a statistician. So the system is built such a way that it is not like, submitting an article to a journal where you prepare your manuscript and upload the manuscript into a journal, and then the journal editors will look at it and then get back to you, right? That process is completely not useful in this particular methodology, because they use only the softwares to communicate information. You don't have to upload any manuscript on a submission page. So to avoid that, they build this particular software. So now what we are going to do is, for this exercise purpose, so we are going to go to a non-Cochrane mode, because that is what you will be doing. As choose this non-Cochrane mode, done. So now the system is set up for me for writing a non-Cochrane systematic review. What I mean by non-Cochrane systematic review is, you can use the software for writing a review and then you can publish it in any journal. Okay, that is what I mean by non-Cochrane systematic review. So the first thing, like any other Word document or Excel file or any other software, we all need to just choose this file, new button, which is going to ask you, what kind of review that you're going to do. So now you might notice there are a lot of various formats of writing a systematic review. The most common format this software can support you is terms of intervention reviews, as well as the diagnostic test accuracy reviews, methodology reviews, and overview of reviews. Otherwise, this overview of reviews are called as, a scoping review, or it is called as a review of reviews. Okay, and the last option is flexible reviews, where you can just manually create your headings and then change whatever option that you want to choose. Okay, these are the different options. For the exercise purpose, I'm just going to demonstrate you to this intervention review option, where you can just choose the intervention review and then click on next. Right, the first thing that you might notice in the software is trying to give you an option for entering the title. Okay, depends upon the review question that you are interested in. You must choose this various option that you can find, starting from the title, which asks you a little bit of broad question. Let's say, for example, that you are interested in antibiotic for Shigella dysentery. This is a very, very broad question, and you can choose this particular option. And it also gives you a specific option being more focused. It says that I'm interested in iron supplementation compared to versus placebo for pregnant women. Okay, it can be even more specific with the third option, iron supplementation for pregnant women in this particular duration, or zinc for common cold in children. So you can specifically choose your question, depends upon what kind of a format, on what kind of a question that your review is trying to answer. And if you are not able to suit your question on any of these three formats, you're allowed to just use the open question. For this particular exercise, what I'm going to do is, I'm choosing this particular option, iron supplement compared to placebo for pregnant women. Okay, so I've just selected this question by typing and this click on next. And as you all aware of research, in research the first step is to try and get your protocol. So once you have your protocol there, then you will be submitting a protocol to your ethics committee or IRB for approval. And once you obtain approval from the institutional review board, only then you will be allowed to just start your study. Okay, and it's also important, those who are involved in doing clinical trials, so you must register your trial prospectively, which means that you should have your protocol written clearly, the methodology and the rationale in your background to justify why you are doing this research, and get your protocol correctly done along with your sample size calculation, your sampling technique and other things. And then you will be able to register in your trial registration document. Once you register, then you will be allowed to start recruiting subjects in your study. Similarly, for a systematic reviews, yesterday you would have heard about Prospero registration, where people try to write the protocol initially and then register in Prospero. Okay, so as I just demonstrate this, the first step is to just click on the protocol and then say finish. So what the magic happens in the software is, it automatically gives you the template for writing a systematic review. So you can see this, the title is available here. You can simply add authors by clicking this button and then right click and edit authors. You can do all this, but it is unnecessary for you if you're planning for a non-concurrent systematic reviews, because you're not going to, submit the studies directly with the help of the software to the journals. Therefore, it is not, advisable for you to just edit any of these information. Whereas what you can do is you can just go to the template which is going to provide you here. So you notice on this side of the window, it gives you the structure of all the contents that are available in the software. So as you can see, it goes with the protocol information. This is irrelevant for you for a non-concurrent systematic reviews. And when it comes to main text, it starts with the abstract plain language summary. Currently, these are disabled because you cannot write the abstract and plain language summary at the protocol stage. So what you can notice is it only, enables this particular three options, that is background, objective, and the methods. OK, these three information is very important at the protocol stage. When you go into the deep subheadings of background, it is not just writing any description that you normally write for a general article. So you must look at the option that it is providing you description of the condition. So you need to describe what is the problem that you are trying to address and what could be the intervention, and if the intervention is available, and this intervention how it's going to work for this particular condition. And then finally you need to come to an heading which talks about this, why it is important to do this review. So many times I see people, in primary studies, they provide a justification that this, study is not being done in India or in this particular population or in this particular setting. Therefore, I want to, conduct a study, which is basically not an innovative research. It's basically trying to validate the research which in your setting. That's all you're trying to do. So in systematic reviews, why it is important to do this reviews, basically the common justification that you find is there is no evidence-based information available so far, meaning there is no systematic review available so far on this topic. Therefore, your motivation is trying to do a systematic review on this topic. The second option could be sometimes people might try to do a systematic review just to synthesize all the available literature, or it could be the difference that you find in the literature that some of the practitioners were using this particular method of treatment. There's another group of practitioners were using a different approach of treating. Therefore, there is controversy between the way that the people treat for this particular condition. Therefore, you need to just justify using a systematic reviews to generate evidence for that particular topic that you're interested in. And then you followed by the objective and then methodology. When you just open up your methodology, so it starts with your criteria. Yesterday, you would have heard about the inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, and all this. This is very well clearly defined here with a heading. So you must start filling up all these headings. So once you fill up all these headings, and you will also notice that data synthesis. So data synthesis is where we are trying to focus today. OK, and then the data synthesis basically deals with the three aspects. One is talking about the heterogeneity. Yesterday you have learned about a little bit about heterogeneity, how to interpret forest plot and heterogeneity. And it also deals with this subgroup analysis and investigating heterogeneity and sensitivity analysis. So these three headings is where you need to, we're going to focus today's presentation as well as the practical. OK, and then rest of the other things are just at the review stage. You notice here all these headings are disabled currently. That's because that these information goes on in a review stage where you will be allowed to write your result section. So once you're just done with this filling up this information, then you can move on to the result stage. So I hope you have got some idea of what goes into the protocol, and this software is going to help you in terms of developing your protocol for your systematic reviews, as well as it's also going to help you in terms of writing up your results. OK, I'm going to do Now, so this review is available. Now assume that you have actually done your protocol written clearly and you have registered your protocol in some database. OK, and now currently what you are planning to do is I want to just, collect the data and then perform a meta-analysis. So we come to that now. So you need to be a little careful here when you do this, because at the protocol stage, all these, headings are disabled, which means that you will not be allowed to do any data analysis at this stage at a protocol. OK, if you notice here, it also says that data analysis is not, enabled. So to enable the software for analysis, we must, change the properties of the software by clicking on this particular button and then change the reviews to a full stage review. So when I just change this option to full stage review, so you will notice that automatically the software is enabling this function which is saying data and analysis. OK, that is a very important aspect that you should remember when you use this software. OK, you must ensure that you are in a review stage so that the data analysis section is enabled for you. OK, you see here data analysis is currently enabled and you see a button which says add comparison. OK, so to perform meta-analysis, so you need to have data. So we need to collect data from studies here. So in a primary research, what you do, you go to each, a participant and you collect information. If you do a cross-sectional study, you give a survey or you send out a survey to all the individuals. They ask them to fill the data. So in a primary research, the sample size could be minimum 30 and it could be as maximum as depends on your analysis that you do based upon your sample size calculations. OK, whereas here in systematic reviews, there is no sample size calculation here. OK, so remember that there is no such sample size calculation required. It depends upon the search that you are performing in your systematic review. Yesterday, you would have heard from Sumati ma'am who talked about, searching database. So she would have explained you how to search in various databases. So searching database and identifying studies is a very important aspect of systematic review. Only if you have properly performed your search in various databases, then you will be able to identify all the literature on this topic. Only if you have all the literature on this topic, then you will be sure about the current state of evidence. Let's say if you searched only PubMed and you identified only one study. With one study, you may not able to just come out with a proper result, because ultimately you will be discussing the same findings what is available in the existing literature. Your systematic review will also only describe what the other literatures have already described, because you identified only one study. When you have 2 or 3 studies, it is going to help you in terms of comparing the results across these studies and try to do additional analysis with the available data. So remember, the data source for a systematic review is the published literature. It depends upon how well you perform your search in these various databases. OK, once you obtain these studies from various databases, then you will be able to know how many studies are available for this particular systematic review. OK, what I'm going to demonstrate to you right now is, so you need to go to PubMed. Yesterday you would have seen this before. I'm just going to bring the studies. If you want to do data analysis, the study is the actual data. So we need to just have the studies available in the software so that we can perform a meta-analysis. For that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to PubMed. I'm just searching for malaria. Let's say, for example, that these 2 studies are very important for me for my systematic reviews. I'm just downloading the studies from these database. OK, and then you can save the studies in a format in PubMed, or you can just save the studies using other reference manager tool if you wish. I'm just simply downloading this study, which is saved here in PubMed malaria set. And then what you need to do is the first step in performing meta-analysis is to bring the studies into this particular software. What I mean by studies is just the references of these, studies. You cannot just take the PDF and upload it onto this software. Okay, so as you can see here, it automatically provides you the options of studies at various stage. The studies and references here, it says that the references to studies as classified into various stages, which talks about included studies, excluded studies, awaiting classification studies, and ongoing studies. There are 4 classifications that you have here, which is listing out how many studies that you actually identified and how many studies have excluded from the identified literature, and how many studies are awaiting classification. Okay,
Richard, sorry to disturb you. Yes. You can minimize that small window where you can see my photo, so I think there won't be any distraction.
How do we do it? Just click on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Thank you.
So now what you can see over here is you have these 4 options. Okay, so the important aspect here is we need to have some studies on included studies. Only then you will be able to perform your data analysis. If you don't have any literature here on included studies, the software is not going to tell you that, not allowing you to just do any data analysis. Okay, the first step in performing data analysis is to bring the studies to included studies list. Okay, for that what I'm doing is you have a function here, file, import, and click on this references, not the studies. Just be careful here, pay attention here. I'm not clicking on studies, I'm just only bringing the references. So I'm just selecting the references that I've just downloaded. Okay, from PubMed. I'm just opening that up. Next. So what it does it actually tells me that there are 2 references found. I'm importing this. While importing, you have multiple options of setting that studies to the various destination. So I'm going to just put the studies in the included studies because I want these 2 studies to be available here to perform meta-analysis. Okay, I'm just choosing this option and then sending the studies to included studies and then say next. You notice 2 studies are there. I'm just going to click on finish. Okay, the beauty of this software is it is automatically what it does is it's trying to generate these tables. Yesterday, if you just notice in the lecture, you would have heard about risk of bias, which talks about this traffic light figure, which is going to talk about the different bias in these various studies. So that also can be performed with this software. We are not going to focus on that currently. We will come back to this little later if we have time. Okay, what we do is we go to this data analysis step. So now I can notice in my software, I have 2 studies here. Don Drop 2005. There is no name. I'm just changing the name here. Say Richard 2018 or something. So now you can see there are 2 studies available. Yesterday when your lecture, you would have just heard while performing meta-analysis, we need minimum 2 studies. Okay, only then we can combine the data. With 1 study, we will not able to perform a meta-analysis. Minimum 2 studies, you can go as maximum studies that are available to combine the data together. Okay. So I'm just only showing you 2 studies just for the exercise purpose. And these 2 studies also fulfill the assumption criteria of meta-analysis. Yesterday you would have heard about assumption. So the PICO format, the P population, intervention, comparison and the outcome should be the same. Only then you will be able to perform a meta-analysis. Okay. So I'm just going here. But the review says iron supplementation and placebo. We have searched for malaria. Don't worry about different studies. I'm just showing you just for the exercise purpose. Assume these 2 studies are comparing iron supplementation and placebo. Okay. So now I have just imported the studies. I move on to the data analysis section. So now you see the data analysis is so user friendly in this software, which gives you this automated, buttons. Just you need to click on the button and follow the instruction. That's all it is. You don't have to, remember a lot of steps. So if you look at this, automatically it gives me an option, data analysis at comparison. So I'm just going to click on the button which is available for me right now with this option. I just clicked. So now it is asking me a question. What name should the comparison have? What are we comparing here in this review? Now I go back to my question and my question says that I'm interested in iron supplementation versus placebo. OK, that is what I'm interested in comparing. So I'm just simply typing that here. I'm comparing iron supplementation versus placebo. OK. And then why should I just give iron supplementation during pregnancy? What could be the outcome? What is the benefit of giving iron supplementation? The outcome could be it can improve the hemoglobin level. So if you give iron supplementation, and then my hypothesis here is that hemoglobin level increases, OK, compared to placebo. So I've just typed this particular question here and click on next. So it is asking me, what do you want to do after this wizard is closed? Do you want to add nothing? Then you can click on finish. Or do you want to add an outcome under this comparison? Yes, I want to add an outcome under this comparison. I select this option and then say continue. And now it is asking me what outcome that you are, trying to measure. So I am interested in measuring hemoglobin level. OK, I looked at the literature, the two literature that I've identified for this particular analysis, also reporting the hemoglobin level. So as you remember yesterday lecture, you would have heard about various types of data in meta-analysis. Hemoglobin is a continuous measure because we are going to collect hemoglobin from each patient or each participant in your study, where you will collect first, participant hemoglobin level will be, let's say in the iron supplementation group, if it is going to be 15.5, fantastic hemoglobin level, because this, lady has been taking the iron supplementation. Her hemoglobin level is increased from 10 and it has been reaching higher. Fantastic, 15.5 is a fantastic result. The second person in the study, the hemoglobin level in the iron supplementation, again it is 14.5. So when we look at all the people on the iron supplementation group, so you have a fantastic hemoglobin level. Whereas if I look at the participant data from a placebo group, all these people who are on placebo group was not taking any iron supplementation, their hemoglobin levels are somewhere ranging from 9 and it only goes up to 10. It is not fantastic change on those people who are on placebo group. So when I try to talk about the group, so I will summarize this data as in mean and standard deviation. So you will not talk about each individual data, right? So we will be talking about the average on that particular group. The iron supplementation group, the average hemoglobin level was 13.5. When compared to a placebo group, the hemoglobin level were 9.5. So when I just look at this two hemoglobin level on average, I could clearly see that those who are in the iron supplementation group, their hemoglobin levels are very fantastically high. It's giving you 13.5. It is a very good on an average. And when you look at the placebo group, it is 9.5, which is not really a very good hemoglobin level. So I have this data from two studies. One is Dondrop 2005 study, and the second study is also telling me the results from this iron supplementation versus placebo, providing me data on hemoglobin, which is Richard 2008. So now I'm just selecting this data, comes from a continuous measure. I'm choosing this option. Now you can notice the description in the software, which tells me that you must enter the mean, standard deviation and sample size on experimental group and the control arm. So if you have this data collected from each paper, then you can probably just do a meta-analysis. So for that, we need to go and read the paper, 2 articles, and then see the data that are available. Okay, so I'm just choosing this option, click on next. So now it is asking me, can you just type the outcome name? What is the name of the outcome you have? I'm just going to say it is an HP level, hemoglobin level, and I can also tell the computer it is not experimental group. Experimental group is iron supplementation, and the control arm is the placebo group. Okay, so I've just typed this information for the computer, and then it is asking me next, what are you going to do? What is your data analysis method? So it is asking you only inverse variance approach is the option that is available for a continuous data. There are 2 models that are available. Yesterday you would have listened to the lecture where they talked about fixed effect and random effect. There are 2 different variation in the meta-analysis. You can choose fixed effect, you can choose random effect, depends upon the heterogeneity that is available in the analysis, and you can decide that. Whereas you have effect measures, we can clearly see there are 2 effect measures that are available. It is mean difference and standardized mean difference. So mean difference is basically tells you in the example that I've just shared before, in the iron supplementation group, there are 13.5 is an average hemoglobin level, whereas in the placebo group, the average hemoglobin is 9.5. Just by doing a subtraction, we know that there is an improvement. Mean difference is just a subtraction. Whereas the standardized mean difference is another option when you have multiple scales used for measuring. So in this example, I'll come to this little later. We'll stick to this mean difference now and then say next. And it says, do you want to go for a total? What is your confidence interval? You want 95% confidence interval, 90% confidence interval. You can choose all these various options. By default, majority of the times what we estimate in statistics is a 95% confidence interval. The reason behind that is 95% confidence interval is when you just remember your p-value concept, where they usually say 5% is the alpha level. So because of that 5% that you fix for your p-value, you are estimating a confidence interval of 95%. Otherwise, you might estimate your confidence interval at different levels, depends upon your p-value that you're going to fix. So by default, the commonly applied method is 95%. Next, and I can change this labels here, which says favors iron supplement, and then I'll come to this later. I'll just change this iron supplement and then placebo. Okay, and then you can say next and then say nothing at the end and finish. So what you might notice is we have completely set up the file for us to just do a data analysis. So we completely performed all this. So you will notice that there is a new tab which is created over here. Okay, our data analysis, it says iron supplementation versus placebo, and it is going to show that it is an hemoglobin level. And it says that the effect measure that I'm going to use is called mean difference. Inverse variance, IV stands for inverse variance approach, the model that you're going to use for fixed effect model. And the confidence interval that we are going to estimate is 95% confidence interval. Now we have set up this entire file. It's very simple once you just follow that. Now double click on this outcome. You will be able to find a new window where it is asking you the comparison name is iron supplementation versus placebo, the outcome that we are interested in hemoglobin levels, and it is going to show that this is a data that you must enter for iron supplementation group, and this is the data for the placebo group. But where will you enter the data? So there is no option of entering the data here. So which means that we should just bring the studies over here to enter the data. So that can be done with all these available different options. by clicking on the first icon, which tells you that add study data, I'm just going to take me to the included study list. If you notice here, you see that there are two studies that we have here, Dondrop 2005 and Richard 2018. So you see these two studies available for us. So I can select the study and say it is contributing data to this analysis. I can click again and select the second studies and tell this study is also contributing data from this meta-analysis. Now we need to enter the data from these two studies. When you notice this two, studies, and it gives me option of feeding the data into the software. You don't have to, enter the data in Excel or something and then do analysis, nothing like that in Raman. It is very straightforward. If you read the paper, collect the data. Once you have collected the data, you just have to enter the data here to perform meta-analysis. Very, very simple. I read this first study. I'm going to add an hypothetical data here. There are 100 participants in iron supplementation group. There are 100 participants in placebo group. And the mean hemoglobin level of all these 100 participants, out of these 100 participants, I have found the average SP level is 14.5 and the standard deviation is 3.1. Whereas in the placebo group, the study is providing me the data saying that it is 10.1 is the average, hemoglobin level. The standard deviation is 2.5. OK, I read this first paper, obtained the data from the paper. By reading this paper, this data is available to me. OK, the second study I read, there were 300 participants in the iron supplementation group. And in the placebo group, there are 300 participants are there. And in this study, and you see that there are a lot of people there. So you find a very robust result over here. And the value standard error or standard deviation is 1.5. And this study it's 9.8 and 1.9. OK, so now what happens, just entering the data, you can notice that the forest plot or the meta-analysis is automatically done. So just by moving this scale, you will be able to just get your forest plot creator. It's very, very simple. Just once you have the data with you from each paper, just by setting up this file, you will be able to obtain your forest plot, just entering that. So you can notice here, by click of this button, you can see this forest plot is created for me for this particular analysis. So I can say that there are two studies contributing data. OK, with a total sample size of 400 in intervention arm and 400 in placebo group, 800 sample size. With this 800 sample size, what I can able to see is I can find this 5.2 unit increase in the hemoglobin level with iron supplementation compared to placebo. OK, so this is a pooled estimate of these two results. The first study is showing there is 4 unit increase. The second study is showing 5 unit increase. Both the studies are showing a fantastic result with respect to iron supplementation. So if you're going to give iron supplementation, your hemoglobin level will increase, on an average of 5 units, and it can range from 4 unit to 5 unit. And then you also need to look at the heterogeneity. It says 78% of heterogeneity. OK, so when you have this heterogeneity, I-square statistics is actually helping you to determine the variation in the studies. When you have this heterogeneity, we need to little bit do some modification by going to a random effect model. Just a click of a button. So you will find this random effects is applied. You notice here it says now it is a random. Now if I just go on, click on this option, now I can see the diamond properly. And your I-square will remain the same, but your estimate will slightly vary, and it shows that clearly this favors iron supplementation. So that is how you perform your meta-analysis. And by just combining studies from, from combining data from various studies. So here we have just demonstrated with 2 studies with one outcome, which is an hemoglobin level. Okay, as I showed you before, this is a continuous data. There is one more option, which is a standardized mean difference. If you click on this, it is go to standardized mean difference. The idea of standardized mean difference is, let's say for example that I'm interested in measuring quality of life instead of just hemoglobin level. So quality of life can be measured using SF36. There are another quality of life. There might be an Indian version of quality of life. Okay, there might be multiple studies from different tools. Okay, or I'm interested in measuring in pain. That's a fantastic example. Pain can be measured using VAS scale. VAS scale has got 2 different metrics. One could be 1 to 10, and there is another VAS scale which can range from 1 to 100. So you have 2 options here. So when one study is reporting, let's 1 to 10. Okay, let's do that exercise now. So I'm just clicking on add outcome. Now I'm interested in continuous data. Next, the name of the outcome is pain. Okay, and then next it is asking me, okay, I know that there are 2 different types of outcome data will be measured with 2 different scales. I go for SMD. Next, all this remains the same. Next, I'm just going to change this. And then changing over here, which says placebo. And then say next, nothing, and then say finish. So now you notice I've set up this file for my analysis, which says pain and standardized mean difference, inverse variance, fixed effect model, 95% confidence interval. So I'm just choosing this, double click. Again, there is no data available, no option for me. So I follow the same procedure which I have just demonstrated before. Select this and then choose the study. So you see that data entry option is available. So I go with the same sample size 100, 100 and 300 and 300 here. Sorry. Now the problem with the first study is I can write a footnote VAS 1 to 10. Whereas the second study, same VAS, but they have used 1 to 100. What will be the problem? When you take an average in 1 to 10, the average say it is 4.5 with the standard deviation of 1.1. And in the placebo group, let's say it's 7.2 and 2.1. Whereas in the scale of 1 to 100, what is going to happen? You will find the value which is going to say it is going to be 41.6, and here you're going to find the values to be 10.1 or something. And the placebo group, what you might find is 79.2 and 15.6. So it is advisable for us to just combine this data together. So looking at the assumption, population is the same, pregnant women, intervention is the same, iron supplementation, comparison is the same, placebo. Outcome is also the same, which is pain. Both the studies are measuring pain, but they are just reporting in a different unit. Because one have used a 1.10, the value says 4.5, and the second scale has used 1.100. And the value says 46. How can I combine this data together? So when you just do this calculation using mean difference, I'll just show you this. What you will find is you will find a completely different result. It says 2 unit, this says 35. How can I combine this result together? It doesn't make sense for us to combine this result. Why? Because look at this heterogeneity, it is 100%, which is telling you both the studies are completely different result. So I cannot do a meta-analysis with this kind of data. Is there any option that we have to just do some statistical in conversion? Yes, it is possible by applying a SMD, standardizing the information into one metric. So if you look at this analysis, look at this now. Now if you look at it, this is also 1.6, this is also 2.6. It is, though the data are completely different, it changes the value to a standardized information. So if you have taken class on statistics, you would have heard about some conversions like z-score, take transformation using log, and like similar to that method, it's called a standardized mean difference, where it converts the data with this standard deviation and then brings them into one single metric. And then now you will be able to combine this data together to make a pooled analysis. So remember that. So there are provision where you can just make a pooled analysis with this help of this tool. OK, what do I do? I'm just making all this analysis. What should I do? Should I just, how do I present in my publication? So you will not be able to send the data directly to your publication. So this software will allow you to just copy this information and paste it into a Word document. So I've just performed this analysis. I click on this copy button. I just open up a Word document. I simply open a Word document and it will allow me to just paste my analysis. If you read any systematic review, if you are able to find a forest plot like this with this format, that has been created using the review manager. OK, so if you can notice a forest plot which has got this format, which means that they have used a review manager for making their analysis. They have not used any fancy statistical software like Stata, SPSS or R. There are many statistical softwares which can help you in making meta-analysis. But this is one of the simplest tool. You don't need to read any big statistical formulas or understand how to import, export. So it's very simple. Just to import the study. I repeat again from the beginning what I've done so far. So what I've done is initially we set up this file and then went to this option of importing the file references, and then we brought the included studies here. Once you have the included studies, then you will be able to do a meta-analysis by going to the data analysis section. OK, so I repeat again from the beginning with another outcome. Let's say, for example, I'm interested in doing another comparison. I'm going to just click on iron supplementation versus what do I compare? Standard care. OK. Here I'm not going to give any placebo, but I'm just going to do a conventional. I'm not giving anything to them. OK, or waitlist control or standardized care. OK, I've just done with this comparison. Next, it is going to ask me what kind of outcome that you're interested in this. Now I'm interested in stillbirth. OK, stillbirth is an yes or no. There are 100 pregnant women who was delivered. Out of this 100 women delivered, the stillbirth is 10. Yes or no? OK, that becomes your dichotomous data. So now I'm going to add another outcome. Here in this case, I will choose a dichotomous outcome and say it is stillbirth. Now I can just change these as I've done before. I'm just explaining this again. Just make a note. And supplementation. The control arm that I'm comparing is standard of care. OK. And next. Now you notice there are multiple options comes off. Yesterday, if you listen to the lecture carefully, for dichotomous data, you have these effect measures which ranges from odds ratio, risk ratio and risk difference. So just to give you an idea about this, odds ratio is only used on a case control study, whereas risk ratio can be used for all type of studies except odds ratio, so case control study. So depends upon the data that is available. You can allow to choose any of these options. OK, here you can apply inverse variance, also Mantel-Hansel method or Pareto method. So the difference between all of these is Peto method is very effective when you have event is very, very low, or when your sample size is very few. Peto method is more robust. And inverse variance method is more robust for a continuous data than an dichotomous data. So most commonly what you will find is a Mantel-Hansel method, because if you can remember, or if you have taken any statistical class, you probably heard about the chi-square test. Okay, if you have heard about chi-square test, the chi-square test has got this principle of Mantel-Hansel method of chi-square test. So you use this for dichotomous data. So we choose this particular option and then decide whatever effect measure that we wish. And then again going back to the same option, 95% or 90% confidence interval, and then changing this label. Experimental group here is an iron supplementation group, and the control arm what we have is a standard of care this time. Okay, and finish, and finally nothing doing, finish. Now you notice here, like we have done previously for iron supplementation and placebo comparison, we are now comparing iron supplementation and standard of care, right? So we have another comparison setup, and now this time we are interested in an outcome which is dichotomous outcome, which is stillbirth, yes or no. And it tells me that the effect size that I'm going to use is called a risk ratios. The analysis approach that I'm going to do is called a Mantel-Hansel method with a fixed effect model, 95% confidence interval. So you can clearly read this and understand what analysis that has been performed. So now I'm clicking on this same procedure like before. Now nothing is available. It is not going to allow me to enter the data. Now if you notice the data that I'm supposed to enter is a number of events, even meaning what was the outcome that I'm interested in and what was the total number in that particular group. So I'm going to look at the studies. There are 2 studies again contributing data. I can click off this button, select these 2 studies and then say finish. Now you see this automatically the data entry option is available for me. So I follow the same sample size 100 and 100, and my sample size here is 300 and 300. Now the number of death in the iron supplementation group is 13. The stillbirth in the standard of care is 36. In this second study I've read, it says 26 and it says 59. Now just by entering the data in the software, it is automatically creating a forest plot for me. I do not have to do anything here. Just enter the data if you set up the system correctly, and then it automatically gives you this value. So you notice here, just by click of a button, I were able to get my forest plot generated for this particular analysis, and this is telling me it favors iron supplementation, meaning if you are going to take iron supplementation, it is going to reduce the risk of stillbirth by 59%. How I got this 59%? 41 minus 100, so 100 minus 49, which is going to 59%. So I hope you would have understood how to interpret that yesterday. So I'm just showing you how you can just create it, and you look at the I-square statistics and it is 0%, meaning both the studies are telling the same result. If this I-square going to be more, then both the study results are not agreeing each other. That is the meaning of I-square value, which is ranging from 0 to 100. The more the I-square value indicates, there is a serious problem in the analysis. The lesser the I-square, is a super fantastic result. Okay, I'm just copying this data analysis and then pasting it. You can just notice this. I have got 2 analysis done with the help of this software, with all the available data is properly done. So my job is to just now write my results and discussion. Okay, so this is how you just create the analysis. There are other methods of outcome. What you might notice is observed and expected variance, which is used for a survival event, which I'm not going to talk in detail about all this because we need a little bit have knowledge on survival analysis for all that to try and extract the data. I just show you the options and tell you what it is asking. Let's say I'm interested in progression free survival. Okay, and then say next, and it is asking me to opt for this particular option, expected and observed value, so which you will be able to get from the paper. So if we just finish all this, next, nothing, finish. So if you notice here, so it is asking me to enter the data in this format so that you can perform the analysis using this approach of expected and observed and expected approach. So we need to enter all of these data. So which is many times it is not feasible for us to obtain from literature unless people are providing this data, because we need to enter this two variable we'll be able to obtain. The rest two variables it's very difficult to capture from the data from a published literature point of view. So we need to be careful while doing this analysis. Instead of that, there is another option that is available for you, which you can go for an generic inverse variance approach. Okay, you can click on this option and then say next, and then say same progression free survival. Next, you can choose this effect measure. Now it's called hazard ratio. Next, next, and then change all this label and then say finish. So you notice here, this time the data that you must enter from each article is the hazard ratio and standard error. This is feasible for you to capture from the available literature. Whereas if you use this observed and expected, it's unlikely that you will find those data available in the literature to perform meta-analysis. So you could take this approach of generic inverse variance or entering the data and get your meta-analysis done. And then you have a lot of other functions with the software. You can explore all of these functions over here. So yesterday, if you remember Krishna talk, you would have just talked about funnel plot, I guess. So you can also create those funnel plot just by click of a button. So okay, all these options you will be able to perform. Just if you click of a button, you will be able to make a funnel plot. Remember, this is only appropriate when you have minimum of 10 studies. With 2 studies or 3 studies, you will not able to find any funnel like structure which can help you in terms of publication bias, detecting publication bias. Okay, I'm not going to go into the details of publication bias right now, but this software will help you in terms of performing a meta-analysis, and then you can copy that information and then put it in a Word document so that your meta-analysis is available for you to write your manuscript, and then you can submit it. So I will just stop here, and I think you got another 15 minutes now. I hope this session was useful to you. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat box. We will be able to reply back to specific questions. Thank you for time, and thank you for the invitation from the organizing committee. I hope I've just given you a little idea of what can be done with the help of a review manager. Thank you very much.
Yes, Richard. Thank you so much. It's absolutely done very well, because I think they could have got at least how to use a Revman for generating forest plot and adding the studies. Richard, anyway, you have forest plot with you already. So what I thought, you have done 2 types of analysis, where one is a dichotomous, another one is a continuous, and maybe I think a little bit you can explain better, like for the dichotomous, the middle point is going to be 1, for continuous, the middle point is going to be 0. So why exactly it is going to be like that? So if you just explain, I think it will be useful.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, right. So what we do is now we are just trying to interpret this forest plot, which is a very essential element in terms of writing your report. Otherwise, there is no point of getting this information, and if you're not able to interpret this. Okay, there are two ways of interpreting this result. One could be the writing up a result. Basically, when you write a result, you will not do any additional computation for writing up your result. You just have to explain the data as whatever that you obtained. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you this particular example where we have performed a meta-analysis by looking at two different interventions. These one is an iron supplementation, other one is a standard of care, right? And the outcome that we are interested in the stillbirth. Okay, so if you want to interpret this particular forest plot, you should start describing the studies that you have contributed data. For this comparison, there are two studies contributed data with a total sample size of 800, which you can obtain from here. Okay, total sample size is 800. And you can also, reply back what, write what proportion of people were, stillbirth in the iron supplementation, what proportion of people in the standard of care. It gives you there are 39 people in the iron supplementation in total have been, still delivered stillbirth. There are 95 people in total given the, delivered the stillbirth. So that information can also be obtained from here. And this is your final result, which is your diamond. So in a forest plot, what you are just trying to search in the forest is the diamond. So this is the diamond which you obtain from the forest plot, and then you see this value, which is going to help you in terms of making your final interpretation. As you can take some epidemiology classes where you might have learned about this basic principle of interpretation, where the risk ratio is less than 1 is protective and the odds ratio greater than 1 means harmful. So the same principle applies for intervention studies. Any value which is less than 1, which is going to be useful in terms of intervention. Why? Because we are trying to measure a negative outcome. Stillbirth is a negative outcome. Okay, whenever you try to measure a negative outcome, if the values or your risk ratios are going to be less than 1, which means that it is going to be protective or it is in favor of intervention. Okay, and if it is going to be above 1 and it is going to be against the intervention. Okay, that is the interpretation. Why this value? If you notice carefully in the risk ratios, you see this middle line, which is line of no effect, which is 1. So what we are trying to do in the risk ratio is we are basically trying to use a division. Okay, if you divide 100 by 100, what will be the result? It will be 1. So in the dichotomous outcome, what we are trying to do is we are trying to do the division. Whereas when you look at this continuous data, what we are trying to do is a subtraction. 1 minus 1 is 0. 100 minus 100 is 0. That is the reason that you will find the middle line, which is dividing the interpretation, whether it favors intervention or favors control, changes from depends upon the outcome that we are choosing. For a dichotomous outcome, risk ratio, which means the ratio talks about the division. Therefore, the line of no effect is 1 over here. Whereas if you look at the continuous data, where we are trying to do subtraction. So it's basically subtraction. This value is 14.5 minus 10.5, you're going to get 4.4. If this value is going to be 14.5 again, 14.5 minus 14.5 will be 0. So you see this dividing line in the forest plot, which divides the favors placebo, favors iron supplementation, changes depends upon the outcome that we are choosing. Okay, where it is 1 for division and 0 for subtraction. Okay, and I also told you this interpretation will change because you see in this analysis, it is not on the same side. If you see here, notice it favors supplementation on this side, whereas in this particular data, the iron favors iron supplementation on the other side. So you need to be a little careful when you deal with the continuous data because the direction of the effect is very important. So here in the iron hemoglobin level, higher the value indicates better the result, which means that the value should be more on iron supplementation, which tells you it is a fantastic result. So therefore you see this label that we have changed to say more the value indicates better the results, favors intervention. Whereas if you look at it here, the lesser the value is, favors the iron supplementation. Okay, so we need to be a little careful when you're talking about continuous data. Whereas in dichotomous data, you always try to measure an event which is negative, not a positive event. Okay, so the same interpretation again here. What you will be describing is, there are two studies contributed to this comparison, iron supplementation versus placebo. The total sample size is 800. Okay, and then you will say that the mean difference that we obtained is 4.93 with the confidence interval of 4.06 to 5.88 with an heterogeneity value of I-square indicating 78%. And you will say that if you are going to take an intervention, the intervention iron supplementation will likely to increase your hemoglobin level on an average to 4.93 with a variability of 4.06 to 5.83, which is a statistically significant result. You can notice this p-value, which is for overall effect, which tells you that the p-value is statistically significant. There is a true difference exists between the intervention and the control arm. So I'm not sure whether you have taken a class on hypothesis testing. So you have set a null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, and then you look at the p-value to make a decision whether it is statistically significant or not statistically significant. So that also can be obtained by looking at this p-value. The p-value indicates that it is 0.00001, which is less than 0.05, which is a true difference exists, which means the intervention is, value is fantastic in terms of compared with control group with respect to this outcome. Okay, I hope I have just explained those details. Is there any specific questions that you would like me to just address?
Yes, Richard, I think that will be very well explained. Hope no audience that got why in some forest plot we are getting 1 as a middle point and why in other forest plot we are going to be get 0 as a middle point. It depends upon the data what we are taking into the analysis.
Yeah.
I have a few quick questions, Richard. Maybe we can answer those.
Yeah, great.
I noted down from the participants' question and answer box.
Great. That will be great. Yes, please.
And already you mentioned how to download the graphs from the Reviman.
Yeah.
Already mentioned that. So we can directly copy and paste into the Word document, because for a normal systematic review, we have to keep everything in the Word document. So we can directly copy the forest plot and all other figures from the Reviman, and we can keep it in the Word document and we can send it for the publication.
Yeah, true.
And one important question is for the continuous data. Sometimes we are going to be apply a mean deviation, and sometimes we are going to apply standard mean deviation (SMD). So when we need to apply MD and when we need to apply SMD.
All right. So if you look at this example, I've just given you clearly that. So here in this first example, hemoglobin is the same unit. So when you notice this pain, I've told you there is 2 different scales applied. So when you have 2 different scales, you must go for SMD. Okay, I hope now you got a clarity there. So same outcome, but 2 different scales have been, used. You cannot go and tell the authors that you have not used the appropriate scale. You cannot exclude a study. So you have to deal with available data. So the option that you have statistically is you can just standardize that scale by using this SMD approach.
Exactly. I think it's very clear now. So whenever we get the outcome is going to be same, but whatever the scale or maybe whatever the method they have used, it is different. Study to study. In that case, we are going to use SMD.
So to give an example that, let's say, for example, that now everybody tries to do a study for COVID on looking at stress and anxiety and, looking at all this. You might consider using, PHQ's questionnaire for measuring stress. Somebody might use a tool which is developed from, a different country. So you might end up, having multiple tools, multiple people are, measuring the same stress with, multiple tools, especially in psychiatry and psychology. You have, BEEF psychiatry rating scale, and you have, CGI, continuous, global rating scale. So same outcome will be measured with multiple rating scales. So if you want to combine those data, using a meta-analysis, you must take the approach of SMD.
Exactly.
Right.
I think that will be a question for most of the people who are working for Revman. I think we answered that exactly.
Right.
And,
right.
And what are the data we have we kept in the forest plot?
Yeah.
When you have a data, because yesterday we explained them that when we extract the data, we can use an Excel sheet. So now they have all the information in the Excel sheet, and they're asking, is there any option to export directly the information Excel sheet to Revman?
No, that is a advantage of this particular software where you don't have to export or import, and you don't have to do all these analysis. Just you need to type that information is looking at the Excel. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. See, there's no option of importing Excel file. Yeah. This is not a data analysis software. This is primarily for systematic review.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And one more, my observation was, especially in the Cochrane systematic reviews, it is obvious that they are going to be considered only the randomized control trials. Usually they don't take any observation studies.
Yeah, true.
But still, in some of the Cochrane articles, in the forest plots, I see the odds ratio. As you mentioned, odds ratio usually we will use only for the case control and the retrospective studies.
Yeah.
So may know why some Cochrane reviews may have even the odds ratios.
All right. So basically, you can use either odds ratio or risk ratios for every design, except that for a case control study you will not able to use the risk ratios, right? So odds ratio, say for instance that if I performed a trial and the trial I want to adjust for this baseline imbalances, I could run a logistic regression for analyzing the data. So when we run this logistic regression analysis, it's only going to provide me an odds ratio at the end. So I can only give you the data in the publication that I have just done a logistic regression. The odds ratio is ranging from this. So when you try to do a systematic review using my study, so I'm not provided with adequate data. So you might end up only using odds ratio as your effect measures. Okay. Especially when terms of cluster randomized trial, when you want to adjust for clustering levels, clustering effects, so you end up reporting an odds ratio. So as a systematic review author's point of view, you will not have access to the actual data to convert them into a risk ratios. Therefore, you end up using odds ratios without any options available. That could be the reason. There are many other reasons that could be the general reasons that you can find odds ratios. Yeah.
And maybe as a biostatistician, as you said, we can use either the risk ratio or odds ratio. Yeah. So if you want to say maybe one preferable one, so which is going to be one and why?
Okay, right. So risk ratios was the most commonly suggested and advisable metric for the systematic review, because it's very easy for any clinician to understand that I've treated 100 patients, out of 100 patients that 20 people have died, which I can relate it to clinically. And in the control arm, I've treated same 100 people with another intervention, but our death rate is like 40 people have died. Okay. I can easily relate to say that there's 20 more people additionally died with the control arm. Therefore, I should make my decision that I should only treat with the intervention. This might be a fantastic intervention for me to give benefit to my patients more compared to the existing treatment or the placebo. So that's more easy. Whereas if I just say that I've got 20 people died, remaining 80 people not died, and 40 people have died, 60 people have not died. Like what I'm trying to compare. Like, am I comparing death or I'm comparing not death? Yeah. So it's slightly confusing for many clinicians to relate that findings clinically. So if you give a denominator that I've treated 1,000 patients, in my experience, 1,000 patients I have seen, I've treated 1,000 patients with this particular drug. I get all the 800 people got better. Only 200 people got worse. So I can relate. Okay, my treatment is working well. There is another doctor who is treating with another intervention, but he treats with a fantastic result. He feels that 700 people have got better, 300 people have got worse. He believes that his treatment is better. When I look at both the doctors, what will be the decision that I will make? It's easy for even normal people to think that, okay, this doctor is performing well because he is able to cure 800 people. compared to the other doctor who has treated only 700 people better. Like, that's a intuition that comes from this particular risk ratio, which is more easy. You can relate it and you can easily understand it compared to an odds ratio.
Yeah, exactly. And one more question is, as you shown the publication bias, we can also do in the review manager.
Yeah.
We can get the forest plot, and we can also get the X test and Vegas test, what we used to do for the
No. So there are many other available techniques are there apart from this general. But for a basic systematic reviews, this will be enough for you to publish your work. If you deal with a huge number of data, let's say you have a broad question, antibiotics for Shigella dysentery, you find a lot of antibiotics. And if let's say we have done a systematic review looking at methylphenidate for ADHD. So there is huge number of studies available on methylphenidate for ADHD. So in that case, we need to be a little careful that are we missing any studies? So it is not only, can be done with the help of this RevMan, where you can just do a funnel plot and get away with it. We must need to do a little bit of advanced analysis like regression using the Zegers and Beggars test and other things are available to look to see whether are we really able to, capture that missing information out there, or is there a small study effect which is missing on the analysis. So those things can be done with the help of Stata or another advanced statistical software, which cannot be performed with this RevMan tool. Now there are a lot of other advanced methods are available like network meta-analysis. I'm sure you might have looked into those when you on. So there are now emerging a lot of other new techniques are coming up with the availability of softwares now. So people go for network meta-analysis and a lot of other things. So technically, we're not covered everything right now at this moment. This is like a basic introduction.
Yeah, I can understand. Yeah, and I think this is the case for the audience, so further they can on their own.
If they are really keen on learning more about all this, they could just apply for a specific training, because we run a training for the whole week. You have attended before on spending a whole afternoon on a whole day on systematic meta-analysis basically.
So that's what my question I thought of asking you that also. Earlier we have a South Asian Cochrane Center there in CMC Vellore. We used to attend the sessions. Yeah. As I understand now that center is not there, but still BV Moses Center is running. Yeah. So what is the process and still all the training sessions are going on.
Yeah, of course we are. Yeah, please. I would like to just announce that we are still continuing the same quality training, which follows all standard Cochrane methodology, though we will not able to provide you a Cochrane certificate because we are not been authorized to give you a certificate on Cochrane, which very soon we will be become a Cochrane network. Once we become a Cochrane network, then you could we can just provide you this Cochrane certificate. In between, during this transition period, we function as a BVMC, where we run online trainings. If you go to our website bvmc.in, you will be able to find all the online trainings that we are offering. And we also provide you systematic reviews. There are multiple versions of systematic reviews now. As you can see in the literature, due to COVID, you find rapid reviews, you find scoping reviews. There are slightly different variations of reviews are there in the methodology and the way that people give some flexibility in conducting the reviews. So you also see those trainings appear in our website. We slightly talk about rapid reviews now because of the time that people are trying to do rapid reviews for policy makings. So we still continue. You can just visit our website bvmc.in. And in case if anybody has got any specific queries, I'll try to help them. If they want to just contact me, you can share my email ID with them.
So from my side personally, I would like to promise all the audience, if you go and attend those sessions, certainly you're going to be an expert. I'm the live example for that. I attended the session in 2013 in CMC Vellore. After that, I could have able to attend Cochrane Colloquium in 2014, which was held in Hyderabad. So with that, I could able to get some more understanding about systematic reviews and able to even publish a Cochrane systematic review. I'm sure that you're going to be learn many aspects, and in one day you're going to be an expert in this area if you can attend the training session from CMC Vellore. Maybe Richard, maybe you can also mention maybe one or two words like I think last week you conducted a session on Covidence. I think it's going to be useful for this audience also. If you just mention, at least they can search for it and they can use it.
There are many supporting tools are available for systematic reviews now because of this machine learning and artificial intelligence are booming now. People have been trying to establish now cloud computing source, like even Revman. If you have seen initially, I've just showed you the web version of Revman, where all the data are stored automatically into the web. So they run backend algorithms to try and utilize the data as maximum to their potential. So we were running a course last week on Covidence, which is one such tool on extracting data for systematic reviews. So I would advise you to just explore this Covidence tool. It's you can take a trial version on Covidence, which is free for registering, and then selecting studies and sorting out the data. You can extract data using the Covidence. Okay, but if you have minimum studies, then I would not recommend you to go and use all the softwares because you have to get trained in the softwares. And if you have only 2 studies for a systematic review, and you might take 1 week for training, which is not going to be, utilizing your time properly. So if you're thinking of a bigger project, or if you have fundings, because these softwares not come free, it has got some, cost included in it. So if you are, trying to have some funding for these systematic reviews, you could, apply for these fundings and get fundings, and you can take this training on Covidence, and there are many other tools. Systematic review distiller software is there. More of commercial softwares are available, which basically streamlines the entire process. So far we have used only the Revman and with the hard copy. So it is well enough. If you know the methodology, you will be able to perform. You're not promoting the softwares. Okay. Though we were at Cochrane Center, so we're not promoting the software, but there are technology available in place, and it is also emerging right now with all the artificial intelligence plays a major role in it. Okay.
Thank you. Right. I think there is no promotion required for the review manager and Cochrane. I feel because it's a freely available for everyone and everyone can use it.
Yeah.
The only thing why we used to suggest always Cochrane is a standard one. So the moment you say Cochrane is a standard, people will remember the standard.
Exactly.
So and one last question, Richard. I think even we got this question even yesterday. The publication bias is the most important one. Even after searching everything, you got everything, but still in the funnel plot you can see there's a publication bias. So people will have a confusion that still we can go for publication. Is it our mistake?
No, see, the meaning of publication bias is not only just missing out studies. It's basically trying to look in terms of statistically speaking, that it looks at the small study effects. Because the rationale behind that is what you might see in the literature is only the positive findings. That is what we assume to see when you search for literature. So if a person who's got a negative results, there is no place in the literature for him to just publish that work. So what you can find in the literature just by searching PubMed or something, you will end up only finding a positive result. In case, suppose, let's say you also attempt to search all the theses from the universities, you will find huge amount of data available. So when you perform a meta-analysis with all these available data, so because of the thesis, you would have just selected over sample size to be 30, because most commonly all PGs will think that 30 is the that magic number. Like if you have 30, then your study is good enough. So there's no valid reason for that to choose as 30 as a sample size actually. Because of certain statistical properties, we might get to that extent of 30, but there is no rationale for selecting a 30. But that study eventually will not be able to demonstrate its effect because of the small sample size. Whereas that study will not find a place in the publication. It will still remains in the thesis stage, or it will be the university as a book. When you do a systematic review, you come across such kind of a very few sample size study. When you do a meta-analysis, then you will realize that the actual meta-analysis, the result that you see in the literature is not the true. When you add all this data, the true result might shift from fantastic result to moderately beneficial result. So that is what we are really interested in, publication bias. Okay, not just missing the studies. We're not interested in whether you missed out any studies. That is one aspect of publication bias. We are more interested in statistically what the small study effects plays a role in terms of making the final conclusion. What was the truth? Okay, that is what more important in terms of publication bias.
So even other speakers were stressing about that. It is not that publication bias means you have done some mistake. You have done everything properly and you got all the articles, but still you can see some publication bias. So it is not going to be restrict you to make a publication. Certainly you can send it by mentioning that still there is a publication bias.
Yeah, so you need to remember one thing first, like every study that you do, there might be limitations. You must have to be, open to accept your limitations in that research. So if you are doing a systematic review from India, you're never going to find an access for Embase, because just to search in Embase, you need to pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you have to write in your limitation that we do not perform search in Embase, and you can also justify that no studies will be available in format from our region. Okay, so if you're doing a systematic review just focusing on, looking at low and middle income countries, or you say that I'm going to do a systematic review on, Indian studies, you are allowed to do that systematic reviews, but it's okay to not to search in Embase and other, North American and Scandinavian, database. Okay, there are fundings available currently from India, like ICMR has, called for systematic reviews. So you might find in future there are, some agencies might call for systematic reviews.
Exactly.
When you have funding, then you can probably search on all of these databases.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Some universities may have an access for Embase, EBSCO and all. So based on the university subscription, you can search for it if there is an availability.
And also you need to be little, open for people to collaborate with you. Like you have some partner who studies from, UK or Australia, you try to, get involved, include them in your research in systematic reviews. They can support you in terms of finding the studies because they have more access than us.
Exactly.
So you could invite those people to be in your team to, at least contribute on those aspects. It's a collaborative work. Yeah.
That's what even Vasubhati ma'am was explaining yesterday. Even she mentioned the same thing. It's always better to have a collaboration for the systematic review, especially if you have a collaboration with the foreigners where they can have more access to all the databases. At least they can search for it, and later we can extract the data and we can involve in all other procedures.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's always be yourself open to all these, avenues which is going to open. So once you start learning, then it's easy for you to just, take your own systematic reviews.
And I personally feel that I think completing a systematic review, always it's better to have a collaboration. If you have a collaboration, you can complete it very faster compared to working alone.
Yeah, true.
Thank you so much for that. And one last question, Richard.
Yes, please.
Sorry for bothering you.
No problem.
Because you explained very well about a review manager, okay? And certainly maybe some of the analysis like sensitivity analysis, cumulative analysis, all these things we may not able to perform by using review manager. So what may be the alternative, the best other software which we can have all advanced type of analysis?
There are commercial softwares available. If you have money, you could just go for CMA, comprehensive meta-analysis software. There are a lot of free sources are available. So you can just go and explore in the net. There are a lot of source, but you need to have some validated software because now every computer science graduate comes up with new artificial intelligence methodology of creating his own packages.
Yes.
So even the R is now very well established. So R software is freely available. There are a lot of packages in R. You can use R for meta-analysis, and that's free again. And if you want, if you have access to Stata, again, Stata can perform very well, meta-analysis. So I don't think so problem on, softwares actually. And we also run a separate course on meta-analysis using R, which is an open source. So we generally try to teach all the open source software. We will not try to teach these commercial softwares.
Exactly. At least all the people can use it.
Yeah, true. And even Covidence we started teaching because that Covidence is now become mandatory for a Cochrane review. Because for Cochrane reviews, it's freely available for all Cochrane reviews. That's the reason that we ventured into, teaching this Covidence for Cochrane systematic reviews. So we primarily teach only the free softwares. So you can take a look at our website. We soon trying to establish a little more new courses on free softwares, on systematic review as well as on basic data analysis and sample size. We are going to plan to run a workshop on diagnostic basics, diagnostic test accuracy analysis next month. So if any of you are interested in joining those course, you can very well join that course.
Yes,
on
yes.
understanding the basics of diagnostic test accuracy.
Yes, yes, yes. So out of my curiosity, I'm asking the Covidence, the software is available. So it came after the COVID or even it was there before?
No, it was there before.
Because
it was coincidence that COVID and Covidence, it's all matched together.
Okay,
that basically derived from evidence. It's a co-evidence is basically, it's basically, contributing towards the evidence in forms of this Covidence has been,
okay, just a coincidence.
Yeah. All right.
So I think I felt participants are very lucky once again. Even they felt so happy after listening Vasumati ma'am yesterday, because demonstration. I don't think so they could have attended any time. I'm sure that all the participants are very lucky to have both of you, Vasu ma'am, and you for the experts in this area. I think no one can explain in detail and very crisply so these concepts. So I'm thankful to both of you, Richard and Vasu ma'am, for giving this explanation. And I'm sure it is going to be very useful as a basic for them. And later on, they can try to get more concepts and they can be the experts slowly.
Yeah. All right. Is there any time left for me, or you are ready for the next speaker?
Yeah, we are going to give a 10 minutes break and then we can get back with the other sessions.
Dr. Krishna, may I have a minute? Vasumati here.
Hi, ma'am.
I had a question for Richard, whether their site has a mailing list by which one gets to know about their workshops. They used to have it in the Cochrane thing earlier.
Yeah, now currently we don't have that provision.
I think you need to do that.
Yeah, so
I'm out of touch with you guys.
Yes, true.
Yeah,
and we were trying to use this MailChimp services, but currently after this Cochrane, it's all linked to the Cochrane website, so we cannot officially use that Cochrane.
Oh, okay.
So everything has been now remote. So we're just working with our own website currently.
Okay. I also just want to add a quick comment. I've heard Richard after a very long time now. I've just not had a chance, but I have to again comment that I've heard him in his very early days when he used to be scared of talking, and now he's evolved into one of the best teachers I've seen. And why I'm mentioning this is not just to compliment him. I could have messaged him, but there's so many youngsters in the audience. I want them to know that I used to be a scared speaker in my younger days. That's another thing. So if we both can evolve to what we are today, everyone can try and do it. That's my message. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that word, ma'am.
And thank you so much for attending based on your interest. Even I have seen you are there yesterday throughout, and today you are attending the session once again. I don't think so you required all this, but still, that's the enthusiasm you're having even today in terms of evidence-based medicine systematic review. So we are very lucky to have you, ma'am, here. Thank you, Richard. Once again, I need your constant support for conducting this kind of webinars for the benefit of the audience. I think we are the people we need to take the concept much better, because even I see a lot of people who did not hear even Cochrane. What is Cochrane? So I think there is a lot of even efforts we need to. I think from our side we need to keep. So I may be consulting you time and again for your support. So I'm happy that you will be collaborating with us in future as well.
Happy to help you, and we are also available on social media as BVMC. So if you go to Facebook, you can just look at our web page on BVMC, and we are also on Twitter and LinkedIn. So feel free to connect to us through social media, and as well as if you have any questions, you can share my email ID. I'll try to respond as much as possible. If there is any specific thing that we cannot write in the email or explain it, so you must, bear with me on not responding to those emails. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks, Vasu ma'am.
Thank you, Vasu ma'am. Audience, we'll take a quick break and we'll get exactly at 11 o'clock for the next session.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
All the best.